Most people are wrong in thinking that a heart rate of 60 is on beat, second by second, ticking like a metronome at 60 beats per minute. But that's actually not how a healthy heart works. In reality, the time between each heartbeat is constantly varying. Sometimes it's 0.8 seconds, and others it's 1.2 seconds. And that's not only totally fine, but indicates the workings of a healthy heart, with this disparity between beats being something called heart rate variability. And just to give you a little visualization of what exactly this is, imagine that you're in a car with the speedometer stuck at exactly 80 miles per hour no matter what. On a straightaway, not a big deal. Actually, potentially kind of convenient, right? However, once you come up on some hills, valleys, and winds around a few mountainsides, you've got a little bit of a situation on your hand. Thus, having the ability and flexibility to adjust your speed based on your environment is kind of a necessity. Well, that's exactly what a high, relaxed and flexible, and low, stressed and rigid heart rate variability is like. With this disparity between beats being a direct assay of your nervous system state and thus your physiological state. An assay that your lifestyle tends to have a little say in modulating. And wouldn't you know it, we have some new research highlighting how, when, and how long you eat may just be one of those modifiable lifestyle variables that will get your heart operating as cool as the other side of the pillow. Here's what you need to know. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftinbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. All right. We're going to waste zero time and get right into this new study, where a team out of Yapaguri Government Medical College in India conducted a prospective observational study on 100 middle-aged healthy adults to investigate whether intermittent fasting could improve autonomic nervous system regulation, with the main assay used to track this nervous system regulation being heart rate variability. And to do this, they first recruited healthy adults with no history of cardiovascular or metabolic disease and placed them on a classic 16-8 intermittent fasting protocol, eating between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., which, for those of you who are new here and haven't spent your weekends going through the 70 plus videos we have on the Fasting 101 playlist, is splitting your 24-hour day into a 8-hour window where you consume your energy and a 16-hour window where you don't, aka you fast. With the exception, of course, of some basic non-energy containing liquids like water, black coffee, and tea. Now, it's important to call out that the participants in this study were not restricted from calories, just the window in which they could consume their energy. And at the beginning and end of the 12-week protocol, researchers measured heart rate variability using standard 5-minute ECG recordings, which analyze both the time and frequency parameters, essentially giving the researchers a view into how the motors and fuel distribution system of the participants' cars, aka their heart and nervous system, were operating, which we'll talk more about in just a little bit. But first, let me tell you what they found. After the 12-week intermittent fasting protocol, they found that SDNN, or the standard deviation of all the time intervals between successive normal heartbeats, a key measure of overall heart rate variability, increased 37% from 36.2 milliseconds to 49.5 milliseconds. A solid improvement. While RMSSD, or the standard measure for short-term beat-to-beat variations in heart rate, a metric which reflects parasympathetic or rest and digest nervous system activity, jumped 51% from 25.7 milliseconds to 38.9 milliseconds. Two changes that reflect a more flexible, relaxed heart. Pretty cool, I know. Adding to this heart-relaxing momentum, HF power, which measures parasympathetic nervous system activity, rose 42%, while the low-frequency-high frequency ratio, or balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, decreased from 2.9 to 1.8, with the icing on this healthy heart functionality cake being that 68% of participants reported improved subjective well-being and sleep quality. All in all, pretty fascinating stuff, with the main variable likely driving this being meal timing and duration. Now, I must call out, this was not a randomized controlled trial, so no causation could be established, just association. So more research is definitely needed in this space. What this study does is just lie some solid groundwork, which will probably become more interesting once I give you a little more detail on what all this gibberish actually means for your health. So let's go through both the short and long-term impact. In the short term, heart rate variability tells you about your current stress and recovery status. A low heart rate variability off your baseline likely means your stress response is overwhelmed, and with it, your immune system compromised and your body in survival mode rather than thrival mode. And yeah, I just made that word up, but it's my channel and I'll allow it. And the underlying drivers of this could be due to a number of different factors. You could be dealing with an acute stressful event, such as a work problem or family situation. You could be overtrained, under-recovered, or missing some other basic biological need, like sleep. But we'll get there. And oftentimes, it can be a mix and match of all of the above. While on the flip side, a high heart rate variability means your nervous system is balanced and your body is operating in an efficient state, primed for adaptation and growth. You're resilient to stress and have the capacity to handle life's challenges. Big difference, right? But the heart rate variability story doesn't end here. Long-term HRV trends can also act as a potential window into your long-term vitality, aka that longevity thing we love to talk about, as multiple studies have shown that people with chronically low or below baseline HRV have a higher risk of cardiovascular mortality, metabolic disease, and accelerated aging markers. Not a group you want to be in. While people higher in an above baseline range tend to experience the opposite, most likely due to their enhanced stress resilience and more relaxed physiology. Which is no surprise because we all know pretty well now that chronic stress kills. Well, actually accelerates any cellular dysfunction that's happening within you, but ipso facto, pretty much the same thing. And as you'll see a little later in this powwow, it's not like this heart marker acts in a vacuum. It is very much a byproduct of your body's internal environment. An internal environment that is very much influenced by your external environment, aka lifestyle. But before we get there, I want to quickly call out something that often confuses people around HRV, as it goes against the intuitive assumption that most people have when comparing it to the most popular heart marker, heart rate, where in a resting state, the lower is better. But as you've come to know, the opposite is true with heart rate variability. Because as mentioned, all the way back in the intro, a higher heart rate variability means more disparity between your heartbeats, which indicates a flexible, responsive nervous system and efficient heart. So keep that in mind when you're getting your biohacking on. And before you rush out to measure your heart rate variability, there is one more critical thing you need to know. HRV is extremely personalized, so there's no universal good or bad number. Someone with an average HRV of 35 can be as healthy as someone with an average of 80. Factors like age, fitness level, genetics, and baseline stress all play a role. So remember, it is all about improving your baseline. And even if you have a wearable like Whoop Band, or a Ring, Garmin watch, or Polar monitor, know that they're not perfect either, because HRV measuring technology is still developing, and different devices use different algorithms, so the consumer market is kind of all over the place. But that doesn't mean the information isn't valuable. It is. What matters most is using the tools you have to track the variations in your baseline, observing and noting what events make it change in a positive or negative way, and tracking your trends over time. Keeping, of course, a keen eye on things like work stress, exercise, certain foods, meal timing, sleep quality, alcohol, supplements, meditation, breathwork, sauna, a Taylor Swift concert, or cuddling with your dog to see how it alters your numbers. Speaking of lifestyle interventions, here are some that have been noted to be particularly good for your heart health and accompanying heart rate variability. In no particular order, first we have the star of this study, strategic meal timing, aka intermittent fasting, which, as we've covered across our extensive fasting 101 playlist, induces a number of cellular and metabolic boosting changes for the average person following a standard protocol. Like, for example, how, as we saw today, the very popular 16-8 protocol was associated with a 37% heart rate variability improvement in just 12 weeks. So if you're interested in exploring how to develop a protocol that is optimal for you, I'll link a few guides in the show notes below. Second, we have the goat of all goats when it comes to health and longevity: high quality, circadian aligned sleep. Because there are few things that tank your heart rate variability faster than deprived and impaired Z's. And one of the reasons for this is because the failure to get adequate deep sleep, or the most restorative, regenerating part of our 24-hour day, stops your parasympathetic nervous system from properly activating, and thus keeps your body in a sympathetic fight or flight state much longer than it should be. So aim for 7 to 9 hours of consistent, high-quality sleep. Keep that room dark and cool, and that bed and wake time consistent. Third, we have overall stress management, because your HRV is going to be in a world of hurt if you keep letting every little thing activate your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, aka your stress response, because this activity leads to the secretion of stress hormones, constriction of blood vessels, and the biological illusion that you're getting attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, while in reality you're just reading some triggering post from a stranger on the internet. You see the problem? So, the implementation of proactive stress management practices is key. Meditation, mindfulness, breath work, exercise, real food, nature, and a plan to de-stress when you get triggered are all stress-reducing saviors, which starts with a little homework by doing the work to identify what exactly your triggers actually are, a topic that we conveniently cover here. Fourth, we have the fan favorite badonkadonking, or more specifically for this case, cardiovascular training, as moderate, consistent aerobic exercise has been shown to improve HRV simply because it makes the heart more efficient while stimulating a flurry of stress-reducing molecules that will stay in circulation for the remainder of the day. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want that? 20 minutes a day keeps those bad vibes away. And fifth, we have the extracurriculars, like alcohol. And I can confidently tell you from my 6 full years of tracking HRV, nights I drank, my heart rate variability fell off a freaking cliff. Every single time. This is mainly due to alcohol's effects on sleep quality, hydration, along with its upregulation of inflammation, and thus activation of the sympathetic nervous system. Not great stuff. Another big HRV impairer that I've seen in my personal data is big late night meals. Why is this, you ask? Well, likely due to the inability for the body to relax when digesting food all throughout the night. Thus, why I shifted my feeding window to earlier in the day, as discussed here. But everyone has different considerations when it comes to meal timing, so I would simply suggest track your data and do what feels best for your unique lifestyle variables. Because, let's call a spade, none of our roads are straightaways. They're all winding, sometimes a lot. So having the right vehicle, one that is resilient, flexible, and highly adaptable to change, is critical. And listen, HRV is not the end-all be-all metric that tells you everything. Nothing is. What it can do, though, is be another tool on your longevity toolbox. Something that can give you more relevant insights to deploy meaningful change against, bringing you that much closer to feeling how you're capable of feeling. And that, my friends, is a worthy endeavor. Now, do me a favor and let me know if and how you track HRV, and drop your most interesting observation from the experience in the comments below, because there's nothing like getting better together. And hopefully, from here on out, every windy road you find yourself on is just a reminder to help your heart and body help you.